What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris with a beard, and I thought today would be a perfect video to release on a relaxing Sunday. You guys can sit back and for those who don't know me, can kind of get to know me in this video with a little bit of some of the knowledge that I had over the last 4 years in the bearded community. And for those returning subscribers, just sit back, relax, and hopefully y'all can enjoy the video. And if you do enjoy the video, make sure you leave a thumbs up. And maybe think about subscribing to the channel if you haven't already to see more bearded content. And then I do some oddball things here and there, fun stuff with the family, or just some videos that aren't beard related. But I wanted to talk about today the #1 reason why most beards fail. And you're thinking, well, maybe they're not using, the right products. Yes, but not exactly where I'm going with it. And then you may be thinking, well, maybe they just have bad grooming habits. Also, a pretty valuable factor on maybe why they're failing. But that's also not exactly where I'm going with it either. The #1 reason why most beards fail: patience. Yep, you heard that. Patience. Patience is the #1 reason why most beards fail. And why is that? Because maybe the growth is not exactly stimulated the way they want. Genetics do play a factor. We all have our weak points when growing a beard. For me, I wish my sides would come out more. I have very thin sides, but you know what? I'll take what the good Lord gave me. You can't beat genetics. It's just one of those things, where certain people, they don't like the way their nose is. They don't like the way their ear is. They don't like, wearing glasses, and, so they get contacts. But it's still an inconvenience in some way, shape, or form, whether you get plastic surgery, certain, insurances will not cover that. That's, not really a, mandatory thing, that has to be done, as far as, well, I broke my ankle and now I need to get it fixed type thing. So when it comes to patience, a lot of people don't let themselves enjoy the ride. They don't let themselves, I'm gonna try a couple different companies that may help, the journey along the way, instead of buying something from, say, CVS, Target, Walmart, which they do have some decent options as far as a beard oil. But besides out of Duke's Cannon Beard Wash and, say, Dr. Squatch Beard Oil, which I've heard the controversies between the company lately, but or Honest Amish Beard Oil, better example there. Out of those options, I have not seen a decent beard wash. I have not seen a decent beard oil. I have not seen ever a decent beard butter besides Baja Watt. You can check them out. Not an affiliate, but I have used their products in the past. It is a decent option. As far as from a beard company, I think they're the only ones that I've actually seen in a retail store. Nonetheless, most small batch companies that I've dealt with have a decent product, a very well above average product, very decently priced. The market is going to go up with time. That's just, the way things go. Minimum wage goes up. So what do? They raise prices, and, especially gas is #1 for that. But #1 bottom, just flat out patience. People do not have the patience, and it's like after a month, oh, it's too scraggly, or maybe even you make it to the 2-month mark and it's like, this is just isn't filling in. What do? They shave it, and then you're back to square one. So with that all being said, it's like we aren't satisfied. Whatever time period you know start growing a beard, it's you gotta give it at least 3 months is kind of the number one rule. Give it 3 months before you do absolutely anything. Just go full on Sasquatch, full on caveman, full on Viking, you know, whatever term you want to use. And then if you're not happy or you want to make any, you know, minor changes, you know, maybe you need to trim up the mustache, or, you know, if you don't like it hanging over the lip, or maybe you want to take some of the transparency, you know, when you're wearing a certain color type of shirt, you know, for me at least, you know, if I'm wearing a white, say yellow or green shirt, you know, I try to stick with darker colors like navy blue, black, maybe a darker green, maroon. Those type of colors won't, you know, fluctuate those transparencies like you know, a white shirt would. So, you know, when you get to a certain point, you maybe trim a little bit, you know, so that way the growth stays even, you know, things stay sharp and tidy. These are all things that, you know, I experienced before, you know, I went and, you know, did different styles like a horseshoe mustache, a goatee, a shorter beard. But for 18 months, don't do nothing, you know, besides maybe trim up the mustache here and there, maybe take off some split ends. But honestly, if you can give yourself, you know, that 3 month, you know, 6 month, things will fill out, things will look better. You know, it's not going to lay the way you want it exactly every single day. You're going to have bad beard days. It happens to everybody. Think about the climate that you're in, heat, humidity, you know, colder days, you know, certain product, you know, that you use, you know, it doesn't matter how much balm you put in, which I wouldn't recommend, you know, slapping a bunch of product in to get it the way, you know, you want it to look. But sometimes balm's not going to work exactly the way you want it to every single day. Butter is, you know, not going to, you know, you're going to get dips, you're going to get dents. There's certain ways and certain techniques that you can use, which we can talk about in, you know, other type of videos. But I just wanted to, you know, bring this to attention for a lot of people who want to grow a beard. They usually fail growing one, and it's not because, you know, it could be grooming habits, but it's not, you know, like the number one issue. It could be bad products, but again, it's still an important issue, but it's the overall number one, flat out, if I'm being completely 100% honest with you guys, it's the patience, you know, and that's with anything. Nobody wants to wait. They want the end result. They don't want to have to deal with the trials and tribulations to getting there. They see a vision, they see what they want, and it's the ultimate gratification that they don't want to wait for. And I've had this problem for pretty much my entire life. But now taking care of plants are the same exact way. You have to nurture, you have to nurse, you have to be patient, you have to be, you know, willing to take the time in the journey of doing so. So with all that being said, in a nutshell, if this video has helped you, if this video has given you some kind of hope for the future, it's like, you know what, I'm gonna give growing my beard another try. Kudos to you. I'm glad I could help. I hope all this information could be, you know, some tools in the shed for you to use for your journey. If you like this video, again, give it a thumbs up. Think about subscribing to the channel. My name's Chris with a beard. It's time to forklift your beard routine.